One day I was going towards the parking space when I saw them both kissing. I was like, what the hell is going on?
Okay guys, today I am going to expose my classmates. But before I start, I must warn you, you might need to get some bleach and holy water to watch this video. Because my classmates have done some seriously cringy and embarrassing things, so stay on guard. Also, if you want to be a part of my next videos, join my Discord. Now let's start.
First video is about a girl, we'll call her D. She is the type of girl who is always looking for attention. No matter what, she always has her makeup in her hands and always tries to put more makeup on. She is basically the Gacha brat, but even worse. She always wears some good glasses and bring new handbags all the time. Maybe she tries to make other girls jealous with new stuff, but I don't think it ever worked, or maybe it does. One day we had a trip to a museum and everyone had to be by the school bus so we could go. That girl told everyone that she will be reaching museum directly and joined the class there. When we were coming back, she gave her handbag to another boy who came in his car to the museum. She told him to keep the bag safe as it is very, very expensive. About 2 hours later, she suddenly started accusing that boy of stealing her bag.
I don't like where this is going.
And told everyone that her bag is not in his car. The boy tried his best to explain that he did not steal the bag, but girl did not listen and started insulting him. An hour later, her bag was found in washroom of museum. Turns out, she took the bag from the boy's car some hours ago to put her makeup on and forgot about that. Now, everyone told her to apologize to the boy, but she said it's very expensive bag and her reaction is justified. Everyone was so done with her, so they did not even bother talking to her again about the issue. Some weeks later, we also found that the bag was a fake cheap copy of a big brand and was worth only some bucks. If this did not make you cringe, then next video will blow your mind. This next is the story when my teachers told me to run for head boy election in my school. I was good in studies, so they wanted me to run for it. There was another candidate who was a good friend of me, and he was contesting too. We decided that no matter what happens, we won't let this affect our friendship. We proceeded with our campaigns normally, but turned out that my friend, who we will call A, was turning everyone against me.
Guess what? You're a bitch.
And then later, tell me that we should not talk bad about anyone because of this election. He even bribed people to not vote me in return for a pack of juice. Really low, right? When I got to know about it, I really did not do anything about it and went on to carry on my campaign. Results came and I surprisingly won. My friend hugged me and said that I deserved it and then rushed. I was worried, so I went to check on him. He was crying and then he suddenly yelled at me and told me I was never his friend. He started guilt-tripping me and said he should have won and I was a bad friend. Well, that was not a good memory, but it happened. So yeah, on to the next one, which is my favorite of all time. This next girl is the just next level cringe, and you won't believe what she did. She always acts like coolest girl in the class and pretends to be a great intellectual person. She is always correcting grammar of everyone and is a walking Grammarly app. Everyone was annoyed of her behavior towards others. One day, I happened to overhear a conversation when she was talking to her friends about the astrology. She said a sentence in English which felt like it came straight from a Shakespeare's book. The sentence was something like this: you participate in mass cultural delusion that the sun's apparent position relative to arbitrarily defined constellation at the time of your birth somehow affects your personality.
What the fuck?
Yes, I had the same confusion reaction as you, but I ignored what she said until some days later I was watching the season 1 of the show Big Bang Theory where Sheldon spoke the exact lines. I was like, wait a minute. A week later, she was talking to someone else again about astrology. This time I joined the conversation to see if she will do that again. She used the same sentence again, and I was like, what the hell? Well, I just told her I like Big Bang Theory as well and moved away. She was looking at me shocked while everyone else was confused. Okay, this one might seem like straight out of fiction, but it is not. This is a real story of my bully from school. I don't know why this suddenly sounded like Bully and Alpha Cringe mini movie. Anyways, there was a guy in our class who used to be rude to everyone, and he always thought he could overpower anyone and was the strongest in world. Not just the students, but he was also problematic with teachers and always gave them a lot of trouble. He was the proper definition of the problem child. I had no contact with him for like 5 or 6 years and had forgotten about him. He one day randomly texted me on Facebook and was being very nice. I was shocked and really confused. He then told me that he needs my help. Apparently his bike was punctured and he had no money and he needed some money to get a new tire. He was almost begging me to give him some money. I felt sad for him that the mighty bully guy who was always so strong would not do this without any valid reason. So I sent him some money. And he then disappeared completely. I just ignored him and did not expect the money back. I did that in good faith and to help him. About 2 months later, he again texted me. Now this was interesting. He told me this time that he was somewhere in distant place and he does not have money to go back home. So please lend some money again and he will return it in 2 days. I was doubtful, so this time I contacted a friend who knew him and asked him what's wrong with him. He is asking me money for the second time. He then revealed the secret of money begging. Turns out the bully was now a drug addict and he was asking money like this from everyone he knew from childhood. He was texting them with same story and was using that money to buy drugs. I was extremely shocked and blocked him immediately.
Shut up!
This is business!
Hey!
I invested the money!
Stop talking! I will kill you!
Sorry. Sorry, sir.
Hey! Dada, why?
Business.
Okay, this one is not a single person. This happened when I decided to team up with 2 girls from my class for a competition. We wanted to win, so we had to work hard. Those 2 were also roommates and I had to work alone at times. I worked extra hard since I knew softwares better than them and they were mostly relying on me for the work. But since we were a team, I did not mind. When presenting the projects, I wrote them their speeches and told them what to speak and divided the roles equally so no one would feel left out after that. They were very happy with me doing all the work and did not mind at all. After the competition was done, our school was satisfied with outperformance, so they wanted us to compete in a national competition. Turns out, the day department started looking for the participants. I was absent due to sickness. Those 2 girls went to the principal and told them how those 2 had worked so hard and did everything and deserved a spot in national team. They did not even mention me for once in the conversation and all the work I had done was just lost. I felt sad and disappointed. When I confronted them about the situation, they got defensive suddenly and told me that I was jealous of their success. When I told them that we were the team and I deserved the credit for my work, they said we don't care. We got the spot in the national team and I should not have teamed up with them in the first place. That was a hard lesson to learn. Of course, they later lost badly in the national rounds and I got to participate in an even bigger competition and made better friends later on. This is about when I saw 2 girls who are always trying to be so cool. They are always wearing revealing clothes, even in the class, and always getting in trouble in school. I never had any trouble with them because I don't interact much with random people in class. One day I was going towards the parking space when I saw them both kissing. I was like, what the hell is going on? They both had boyfriends and they said they had very good relationships. I saw them and they saw me. They were embarrassed and so was I. Being gay is not allowed in our country, so I was confused because this was something new to me. But turns out they were not being gay. They said they were straight and just wanted to look cool, so they were trying this. I told them it's not something you can do to just look cool. They told me to stay shut and don't tell the class. I was never planning to tell anyone anyway. Then some days later, one of the boyfriends caught them like that again. And everyone knew about them. Poor boy's heart was broken. Their parents were told about it by the school, and that ended up their troubles because they changed the school afterwards. Okay, so this is the first story about a creepy health staff who would take girls alone for checkup.
That's suspicious.
Back when Mr. Benson first arrived as our school nurse, everyone thought he was just a friendly face. He was the only male staff member in a nearly all-girls environment.
I don't like where this is going.
And at first, we didn't see any issue with it. But after a while, things started feeling off. Some of my friends and I noticed that Mr. Benson would call random girls from class for health checkups, even if they hadn't asked for one. He'd pop into the room, point someone out, often the quieter girls, and say something like, "I need to check on your condition," even though the student had no known issues. Then he'd bring them to his small office, close the door, and lock it. A few of my classmates mentioned he asked them personal questions about where they hung out after school or which route they took home. It wasn't even about their health. It was more like he was prying into their personal lives. One time, my friend told us she went in to see Mr. Benson for what she thought was going to be a quick check on a bruise from gym class. She said the bruise was tiny, barely worth noting, but he insisted she needed weekly follow-ups. Weekly. We all looked at her like, that's weird.
Wait a minute.
But she wasn't sure how to say no. He was an authority figure. After all, gradually, pattern became clearer. Most of the girls he called in were timid or anxious, the type who wouldn't easily protest. Our group started comparing notes. We realized this was happening much more often than we first thought. It wasn't until Mr. Benson called in one of my friends for the second time that week that she finally broke down and told the teacher she felt really uncomfortable. The teacher passed on the concern to our principal. That was the tipping point. The administration launched an investigation, talking to students who had had these checkups. Most of us shared similar stories: locked doors, odd personal questions, and an insistence on follow-ups that didn't match our minor injuries. The day after the investigation wrapped up, they quietly put Mr. Benson on leave.
Guess what? You're a bitch.
Word got around that he was using his position to isolate students under the guise of health checks. In the end, the school changed its rules. Now there has to be a female staff member present for any medical appointment in the nurse's office, especially if the door is going to be closed. This story is about a guy who used to arrange secret parties which were not really for school students but for grown adults doing very suspicious things. Let's call him Nate. He had a knack for sneaking out of class and throwing these secret meetups around campus. Whenever you heard about some mysterious gathering behind the sports field or in the old storage room, you just knew Nate was behind it. He'd pass out these handwritten invitations with suspicious directions telling you to show up at lunchtime.
This is business.
Some kids thought it was thrilling, like being invited to a private club, but the reality was they'd often end up missing class entirely. Rumor had it he even brought contraband, sometimes alcohol, vapes, stuff no one should be messing with. At school, teachers weren't clued in, and the students who joined kept it a secret for the cool factor. But then 2 first-year kids got busted returning to class late, reeking of cigarettes. Under pressure, they admitted Nate convinced them to try just 1 puff during a secret break. It didn't take long for the staff to connect the dots, realizing all these suspicious absences and tardiness pointed back to Nate. The final blow came when a teacher discovered him mid-party in an abandoned classroom, complete with a stash of contraband.
Stop it. Get some help.
Word spread that the principal wasted no time calling Nate's parents, and by the end of the day, he was expelled. So this next story is about a teacher who would call students for 1-1 tutoring without telling anyone else. Back when Mr. Weirdo joined our advanced math department, a lot of students thought it was cool to finally have a teacher so passionate about pushing us to excel that he started offering these 1-on-1 tutoring sessions after school. He picked specific students, often the highest achievers or those who seemed a bit uncertain about the material. Some of us thought it was just him being helpful. Others noticed he'd sometimes corner quieter students, insisting they needed more enrichment. Things got weird when we learned these sessions happened behind locked doors. If anyone knocked, Mr. Weirdo would say something like, "We're in the middle of an intensive session, please don't interrupt." A few girls told each other he asked really personal questions during these meetings, like how many siblings they had, where they hung out on weekends, or even if they had a boyfriend. Nothing to do with math at all. One friend of mine, let's call her Donnie, mentioned feeling super uneasy when he placed his hand on her shoulder and kept it there while explaining a geometry problem.
What? What the fuck?
She shrugged it off initially, thinking maybe he was just being encouraging. But later, she compared notes with another girl who said the exact same thing happened to her. They both got creeped out. It wasn't until a parent got involved that the school really took notice. This parent's daughter came home from tutoring in tears, refusing to ever go back. The mother confronted the school, asking why a teacher would lock the door with just her daughter inside. The school decided to review hallway security footage. The next morning, Mr. Weirdo was called into the principal's office. By lunchtime, word spread that he was placed on leave pending an investigation. After all that, Mr. Weirdo never returned. This next story is about a stalker classmate who was caught outside girls' locker and taking photos. There was this kid in my school, let's call him Colin, who had this really unnerving habit of following people around. It wasn't just one or the students he trailed. It was practically anyone who caught his attention. You'd be walking down a hallway and you'd see him lingering at the far end, just watching. If you turned a corner, he'd suddenly appear behind you, giving this subtle smirk as if stalking you was no big deal. Over time, it got worse. Colin started memorizing class schedules, so he always accidentally showed up in the library when a certain group was studying or near the art room right after the bell rang. Some students swore they saw him take photos with his phone, but no one could ever prove it because he'd hide it the second he was approached. The real turning point happened one day after school during drama club rehearsal. A friend of mine was backstage checking props near a stack of chairs. Out of the corner of her eye, she spotted a shadow moving. She looked closer and realized Colin was crouched there, phone in hand, basically lurking. The second she called him out, "Hey, what are you doing?"
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Nothing. Me? Just hanging around.
He bolted, knocking over a couple of chairs on his way out. That should have been enough to get him in trouble, but what really broke it open was when our drama teacher found him lurking outside the dressing rooms.
Yep.
The teacher caught him mid-snap, taking photos of students who were changing costumes inside. That was beyond creepy, and it obviously crossed every line imaginable. The school wasted no time launching an investigation. They confiscated Colin's phone, and rumor has it they found a bunch of questionable pictures. As soon as the principal confirmed this, Colin was suspended indefinitely. This next story is about a guy who spread so many false rumors about others that caused mental health issues for many people. There was a guy in my school named Devin. He used to create false drama in school. He'd do it in small ways, like slipping anonymous notes into people's lockers with weird confessions or straight up insults. Sometimes you'd open your locker and find a note accusing you of cheating on a test or saying your best friend had been talking trash about you. Because it was all anonymous, people assumed maybe a jealous classmate was doing it. Devin would just shrug when anyone mentioned it, acting clueless, but where he really went off was digital. If two students started dating, Devin would go online and forge fake screenshots like one of them flirting with someone else. He'd show these screenshots to the friend group, letting them freak out and start fights. It worked almost every time because everyone believed what they saw on screen. Things escalated to a breaking point during a school election for student council. Devin planted all kinds of phony stories about each candidate. Some were silly, like one candidate allegedly stealing cafeteria food, but others were brutal. He doctored texts that supposedly showed one candidate bribe another. Eventually, the school's ID teacher got involved. A few of the angry candidates brought her the fake screenshots, and she decided to trace their digital footprint. It led right back to Devin's IP address.
Part of the script.
He was dragged into the principal's office and suspended for causing massive drama and forging digital evidence.
FBI, open up!
Messing with what looked like a hairbrush. They heard some faint buzzing or beeping sounds. At first, okay, so that was just the trailer of my cringiest classmates doing the most suspicious things ever. This is the collection of the weirdest things classmates have ever done. Okay, this one is about a guy in my class. We'll call him the sus guy for this video. So the sus guy is the one who is always known for his weird things in class. Whenever there is something suspicious going on in the class, he is the one everyone looks at, and rightly so, because he has always been doing weird things. In some early years at school, he was literally caught with a phone he stole from his dad. But we'll talk about that on another day. So this guy started doing business in class, giving people tutorials on the weirdest stuff I can't even mention for money. Sometimes he would become a boxing coach, telling boys how to win at a fight. Some boys really thought of him as the source of every weird knowledge.
Why, Dada? Why?
This is business.
This is my sweat.
I know, but I did business.
But here's the most problematic incident that made the school install cameras near the toilets. So, he was always sharing weird tutorials on how to find suspicious stuff on the internet. He would give the boys written notes on how to find problematic material, if you know what I mean. He was never caught, so teachers just thought of them as rumors. But then a rumor started circulating in the whole school that the sus guy tells boys weird tutorials which makes them feel good. Yeah, that is really messed up. One time he was caught by some other boys in the class doing weird things and teaching others. Some students complained to the teacher, but he avoided it again. Then here comes the time when he was teaching something weird to other boys in restroom. Some other students told the teachers and guided them to toilets. The teachers opened the door and caught a group of boys with some really questionable things. The sus guy was literally dragged to the principal's office. His parents were called in and they were told what he was doing. The sus guy was kicked out of the school and his weird cult was given warnings.
Stop it. Get some help.
The school management then installed cameras near the restroom and a group of more than 4 people near restroom was prohibited. This incident made quite the headlines for years. So, there was another guy in my class, a friend of the sus guy. Let's call him DVD Dave. From the outside, he seemed normal, maybe a bit quiet, but not someone you'd suspect of running a whole underground operation. Then rumors started flying around that Dave was handing out mysterious DVDs after school, telling people he had exclusive material you couldn't find online. Some thought it was just random movies or shows, but the whispers about questionable content got louder. At first, Dave only gave these DVDs to a few people he trusted, usually in hallway transactions or behind the gym after last period. We'd see him slip a disc to someone who'd quickly hide it in their backpack. A lot of us assumed it was just some anime or maybe a trending show he burned from the internet. But a couple of classmates claimed that what they saw on those DVDs was a lot more, let's say, disturbing than a simple anime. Still, no teacher had any proof, so they brushed off the rumors. The whole thing turned into a bit of a trend. Did you hear Dave's DVDs have that kind of stuff on them? Some students were curious, others were downright scared. Then one day, a kid ended up so freaked out by whatever they watched, they spilled the beans to a teacher. They didn't go into detail, but they made it clear these DVDs were far from school appropriate. The teachers and our vice principal started monitoring the usual handoff spots, the library corner, the cafeteria side entrance behind the gym. Sure enough, they caught Dave in the act, passing off a DVD to someone who looked terrified to even touch it. Both of them got hauled off to the office. Turns out, Dave had a whole stash of these burnt discs hidden in a duffel bag. Once the principal got a look at the unacceptable material on them, Dave's fate was sealed. His parents were called in, and apparently, they had no idea he was dabbling in anything like this. The very next day, there was an announcement about stricter locker checks and a reminder that any distribution of inappropriate media will result in immediate disciplinary action. Dave ended up expelled. No big surprise there. Nobody wanted another scandal like that. And anytime someone showed up with a random disc or started whispering about exclusive content, we'd all look at each other and think, nope, not going down that route again. So there was this girl in my grade, we'll call her Raven. She was known for being a bit secretive, always lurking around the hallways with earbuds in and a book clutched to her chest. Nobody thought too much of it, just a shy classmate doing her own thing. Then one day, everything changed when a few students caught her in the restroom with a strange-looking device. It was between classes, and most students were hustling to get to their next period on time. 2 girls walked into the restroom and noticed Raven crouched in the corner.
FBI, open
messing with what looked like a hairbrush. They heard some faint buzzing or beeping sounds. At first, they thought maybe it was some homemade contraption for a science project, but Raven's posture was super tense, like she didn't want to be seen. The girls asked her if she was okay. Raven immediately tried to hide the device behind her back.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Nothing. Me? Just hanging around.
Mumbling something about just checking my heart rate. One of the girls bolted to get a teacher. By the time the teacher arrived, Raven had stuffed the device in her bag, but she was still standing in the corner of the restroom looking rattled. The teacher calmly asked her what she was doing, but Raven just shook her head, refusing to answer. It turned out Raven had cobbled together some kind of personal gadget that was rumored to send mild shocks or vibrations. Some people said it was for self-defense. Nobody got the full explanation. Some said she was testing out a weird invention. The details stayed fuzzy, especially since Raven stayed tight-lipped even after her parents came in for a meeting. School administrators, of course, freaked out. The next day, the principal announced not bringing unauthorized electronic devices to school and hinting at serious consequences for anyone caught. Raven ended up suspended for a while. By the time Raven came back, she kept even more to herself, hardly speaking to anyone. Even now, if someone jokes about weird gadgets, you'll hear Raven's name pop up, followed by a dozen theories that still have no concrete answers. So there's this other story about a student. We'll call her BRAT. She was basically the female version of the sus guy, always popping up when something weird or shady happened in class. You know how it goes. Someone sneaks a phone in, or suspicious websites get pulled up on the library computers, and everyone's whispering. At first, it was small stuff. She'd be caught showing friends secret codes for online games or scribbling strange cheat sheet formulas in the back of her notebook. Most teachers ignored it, figuring it was just typical middle school curiosity, but then rumors started spreading that she was giving out detailed tutorials on how to find all kinds of questionable material on the internet.
I don't like where this is going.
Apparently, she'd pass around little folded notes with instructions that made people either blush or freak out, depending on what they read. Still, nobody had proof. She was slick about it. She'd say, "Meet me behind the gym," or "Check under your desk during homeroom," to deliver these mini manuals. But then came the day she got a little too bold. Word went around that she was teaching a group of students how to bypass certain restrictions on the school network so they could watch some very not school appropriate videos. It escalated when the principal heard rumors about unmentionable content being passed around. Soon enough, a couple of students snitched to the teachers, saying they'd seen her coaching a group in the restroom. The staff got suspicious, especially since that restroom had become a hotspot for random gatherings. One afternoon, the teachers pulled a surprise check. They barged into the restroom and found the BRAT in full-on tutorial mode with a handful of wide-eyed classmates. Some had their phones out, and the teacher snatched a few of them on the spot, uncovering all sorts of, let's just say, edgy tabs open. The entire group was ushered to the principal's office, but the BRAT got the spotlight for being the ringleader. She was expelled right away. Her parents were called in, and from what people heard, they were absolutely horrified to learn what she'd been doing all this time. Alright, since all of you love story time of exposing the weird classmate stories, here we go. I changed the names of the characters and added some more details to make it a bit funnier. Feel free to comment your stories in the comments section or send them in Discord. I will add them in my videos without exposing your names. I'm exposing this wannabe celebrity in my class who tried to turn us into his personal fan club. Let's call him Ethan. So, we're in math class, trying not to doze off while the teacher explains something about polynomials, and suddenly Ethan pops up like, "Hey everyone, subscribe to my channel. I'm filming a new vid this weekend." Like, bro, chill. We're knee deep in equations, and he's out here pitching his brand. It didn't stop there. Ethan started offering roles in his next vlog if people would do his homework. "Help me with this essay, and I'll shout you out." He acted like he had millions of followers, when in reality, his most viewed video was him failing a skateboard trick. Then came the big test. Ethan failed it hard. Afterward, he got desperate. He cornered my friend in the hallway whispering, "If you finish my project, I'll feature you in my next TikTok. We'll go viral." Like, dude, we all know you have 50 followers, half of which are your cousins. But I had enough. I started noting down every time he pestered someone. I even recorded him trying to bribe a classmate with exclusive backstage passes to a vlog he films in his garage. Finally, at lunch, I confronted him. "Ethan, remember when you begged Emma to do your science project for a special cameo?" I've got receipt. Everyone went silent, and Ethan's face turned tomato red. Suddenly, nobody wanted to be his unpaid workforce. Class realized his fame was as fake as his promises. Now Ethan keeps quiet during class, and I haven't heard a single subscription begging session since. Sorry, Ethan. Guess you'll have to earn those grades and follow us the proper way. In next story, I'm gonna expose someone who literally took advantage of one of the nicest people in class just because they had a little crush. Ugh, I know, it's super messed up. Okay, so there's this super shy student, let's call her Mia. She's the type who always sits in the back, taking neat notes and never bothering anyone. Well, Mia admits she's got a major crush on a classmate. We'll call him Ryan. Ryan's popular, athletic, and always surrounded by his crew. Mia figures that maybe if she helps him out, he'll notice her in a good way. At first, it's just small stuff. Mia lets him copy a few answers before class, helps him study for quizzes, nothing too big. But then Ryan starts getting comfortable. He's like, Mia, can you just finish my history essay? I'm so busy. And Mia, being head over heels, agrees. The more Mia helps, the less Ryan even acknowledges her. Whenever he texts her, it's always, I need the math homework by tonight, or send me the answers ASAP. It becomes super obvious that he's using her as his personal homework machine and doesn't care about her at all. Finally, Mia reaches her breaking point. She goes through their text history, page after page of Ryan's demands and zero actual conversation. No joke, no compliments, not even a little, how are you? Furious and hurt, Mia decides to expose him. The next day, Mia shows a few classmates. Word spread fast. People are shocked that Mr. Popular Ryan is such a jerk. By lunchtime, everyone's talking about how he basically catfished Mia's feelings for free assignments. It's not a good look. If you ask me, Ryan got what he deserved. Okay, next story is super interesting. So there's this shy kid in my class, let's call her Elena, who's been crushing hard on this really sweet guy, Carter. They're both quiet, always sitting in the back row, and I swear they've never exchanged more than 2 words. But Elena finally builds up the courage to write a heartfelt confession note. She sneaks into school early one morning and slips the note into Carter's locker. Problem is, someone else saw her do it. This nosy student, Ava, can't mind her own business. She actually opens Carter's locker. She scribbles out half the words and replaces them with embarrassingly weird stuff. Think random doodles of frogs and lines like, your elbows smell like old cheese. Like, what even? Anyway, Carter opens his locker before homeroom and finds this bizarre love letter. He's expecting something nice or at least coherent, but all he gets is nonsense. He's totally confused and a little freaked out. Elena, watching from a distance, is devastated. She knows that isn't what she wrote. She watches Carter just look puzzled and maybe a bit grossed out. Honestly, the poor girl was about to cry on the spot. Everyone starts whispering and laughing, and rumors spread like wildfire. But here's where it gets good. Another student, let's call her Priya, caught Ava on the security cams, or maybe she peeked around the corner at just the right moment, messing with that locker. Priya shows everyone the footage, and Ava's entire plan blows up in her face. Moral of the story, don't mess with someone's heartfelt confession. Next story is about this so-called love guru in my class who turned out to be a total sham. Seriously, you'll never look at professional dating advice the same way again. So there's this student, we'll call him Mac, who claims he's a relationship expert. He's always bragging about his methods and techniques, and for a small fee, like $2 or a snack from the vending machine, he'll write you a personalized love letter or give you the perfect line to win over your crush. The first few victims who tried his advice ended up looking completely ridiculous. One guy tried Max's pickup line on his crush and got a blank stare in return. Another girl paid Max to write a heartfelt note, but the thing sounded like it was ripped straight from a Skibidi Toilet video. The worst was when someone tried to impress their crush with Max's foolproof compliments and ended up talking about toenail. It was quite weird. Time for next story. So, let me tell you about this one kid in my class who's basically a walking black hole for school supplies. We've all got that classmate who's always like, can I borrow a pen real quick? Or, I just need an eraser for this test. But with this kid, let's call them Alec, those pens and pencils never come back. I swear, you could hand Alex a pen and poof, gone, vanished into thin air. At first, we thought maybe Alex was just super forgetful, but after a few weeks, everyone started noticing that their supplies were disappearing at record speed. One kid lost 5 pencils in a week. Another swore he lent out the same pen 3 times, each time never seeing it again. Finally, after months of this mysterious stationary vanishing act, my friend Emma got suspicious. She decided to do a little detective work. During a group project, when Alex stepped out to grab something, Emma took a quick peek inside their backpack, strictly for investigative purposes, of course. What did she find? A full-on pencil case kingdom. I'm not kidding. Pens, pencils, highlighters, erasers in every shape and color, all neatly organized like like they were planning to open their own office supply store. We got our stuff back, and now no one trusts Alex anywhere near their stationery. So, you know how some kids try to sound super smart by dropping big words into conversation? Well, we've got one classmate, let's call her Bella, who takes it to a whole new level. And by new level, I mean a secret dimension where none of the words actually exist. The other day, I'm sitting in English class, trying not to nod off while Mrs. Green talks about Shakespeare, when Bella leans over and whispers, "Have you ever considered how very slath-worthy these sonnets are?" I'm like, what? Did she say slath-worthy? Is that even a sound humans make? Fast forward to lunch. Bella's in line at the cafeteria, tapping her foot and going, "Ugh, the pizza here is so florvikit." A couple of kids nearby raise their eyebrows. One brave soul asks, Bella, what does florvikit mean exactly?" She gives him a pitying look, sighs as if we're all hopelessly uneducated, and says, "You seriously never heard that before? It's not just random moments either." Bella will casually drop these bizarre words into everyday conversation like she's been practicing them in front of a mirror. "This gym class is so crimbletic today," or "I'm feeling really yoppish about the quiz." Now it's become a sort of game for everyone else. If Bella uses a word, we just smile, nod, and guess what it might mean. Next, I've got a story that still makes me laugh. So there's this classmate of mine, we'll call him Jacob, who's always rolling his eyes at anything trendy, mention TikTok, and he'll lecture you on how cringe it is. He's that person who claims he doesn't even know what a For You page is, right? Anyway, it's break time, and I head to the restroom. I push the door open, and bam, there's Jacob, center stage, phone propped perfectly on the sink. He's busting out some fancy footwork that would make a dance crew proud. He just blurted out, "I was washing my hands." I just nod, raise an eyebrow, and say, "Wow, some interesting hand washing moves you've got there." He stutters something about just warming up and stretches. Meanwhile, I'm biting the inside of my cheek, trying not to laugh. When I leave, he's still standing there, probably wondering how he's ever going to deny loving TikTok. So on to the next story. There were these two girls in my class who always claimed to be the ultimate BFFs. You know, the kind who do matching hairstyles, swap hoodies, and finish each other's sentences. Of course, half the class was like, they're just super close friends, while the other half whispered, "I don't know, I heard they might actually be dating." But here's the twist. It's apparently banned in our university to be in a same-sex relationship. Yeah, that's a whole other issue. Don't even get me started on the outdated rules around here. Anyway, these two always played it off like, "Oh, we're besties. We're basically sisters." Meanwhile, the rumor mill was working overtime. Everyone had a theory, but no proof. Then one afternoon, a classmate heads over to the car park, probably searching for a quiet place to cram in some last-minute studying or to scroll on their phone, let's be real. And guess what they see through the windshield of a parked car? Our so-called best friends, totally mid-lip lock. I'm talking a full-on kissing scene that definitely said, "We're more than just friends." Naturally, the classmate kind of froze for a second like, do I back away slowly or pretend I'm blind? But it was too late. One of the girls spotted them, cue frantic hair smoothing, seatbelt grabbing, and windows rolling up, as if that would somehow erase the fact they'd caught. Word spread faster than Free Pizza Day. But instead of shock or scandal, everyone mostly found it hilarious. The two girls were mortified, stumbling over excuses like, "We were just, practicing for drama club." Let's just say no one was buying it. Next story is my favorite. So there's this guy in our school, let's call him Kevin, who managed to befriend practically every girl in class by claiming he was totally 100% gay. And you know what? At first, nobody questioned it. He'd gush over their outfits, join in on their gossip sessions, and even help them pick out which lip gloss really brought out their eyes. Naturally, the girls adored him. They'd invite him to all their hangouts because, well, they thought he was safe and wouldn't try anything sketchy. Meanwhile, the other dudes were low-key jealous because Kevin got to sit at that exclusive lunch table where it's all giggles and makeup hacks 24/7. But here's where it gets hilarious. One day, rumor starts floating around that Kevin was spotted holding hands with a girl at the mall. Yes, an actual date situation. Everyone was like, no way, maybe they're just besties. But then more evidence piled up. Witnesses claimed they saw him buy her boba tea, and they were definitely acting like a couple, sharing straws, blushing, the whole 9 yards. By Monday morning, the entire school knew. Kevin walked into class, all confident, only to be met with a sea of raised eyebrows. The girls who thought he was their gay best friend suddenly realized he'd been playing them for months. People were half shocked, half dying of laughter at the look on his face when confronted. He tried to brush it off, muttering stuff like, "Oh, I was just, experimenting," but nobody bought it. Let's just say, by lunchtime, Kevin's fabulous gay persona had completely evaporated. Now the girls tease him constantly, like, "Kev, which shade of lipstick should I use with my new outfit?" And then crack up when he pretends still knows all the tips. So here's the next story. There's this girl in our department who likes to flex all these super fancy designer shoes. Think high-end brands, flashy logos, the whole deal. She'd roll up to class bragging about how she spent a fortune on her latest pair, dropping names like Balenciaga or Gucci to sound extra rich. Honestly, everyone kinda believed her until last weekend. Turns out, a few classmates were hitting up the local Sunday market. You know, the spot where you can score cheap street food and random bargain. They're wandering around, minding their own business, when they see someone suspiciously familiar haggling over some shoes that are very obviously fake brand knockoffs. And it's our wealthy friend. She's holding a pair of super off-looking Yeezys and they're being sold for like the price of a burger combo. The classmates did a double take, then tried to play it cool and not laugh too loud. I mean, seeing Miss I Only Wear designer buying secondhand copies in the bargain bin. Talk about an awkward encounter. By Monday, word spread like wildfire. Now she's scrambling to cover her tracks, claiming she was just testing out styles. So here's the next story. There's this girl in our class, let's call her Amber, who seemed like the ultimate social butterfly. She'd give you a wide smile in the hallway, tell you how much she loved your outfit, and offer to share her lunch if you forgot yours. I mean, talk about sweet, right? She had this habit of handing out compliments like they were candy on Halloween, so it was easy to believe she was just that friendly. But then, weird stuff started happening. We'd hear from a friend of a friend that Amber called someone's makeup clownish behind their back, or we'd catch her rolling her eyes the moment the person she just complimented was out of sight. A few people brushed it off first, like, oh, maybe she's just joking. But it got worse. She'd gossip about one person's family situation to another, totally stirring the pot. Meanwhile, to their faces, she'd act like their number one supporter. The best part, she thought she was so slick about it. She'd whisper her snarky comments in the corner of the cafeteria, hoping no one would notice. Newsflash, people notice everything. School. Pretty soon, everyone started comparing notes, realizing, wait, she backstabbed you too? It was like a group puzzle, and all the pieces came together. Eventually, word spread that Amber wasn't the sweetheart she portrayed on social media or in class. Once people pieced it all together, they were done giving her the benefit of the doubt. Nobody confronted her in some huge dramatic showdown. Everyone just kind of stepped back. These days, she's mostly by herself at lunch, scrolling through her phone with a fake smile plastered on her face. So, here's the next story. We've got this one guy in our class, let's call him Noah, who, to be honest, is known for being the king of selfish moves. He's the type of person who'll take the last slice of pizza without asking if anyone else wants it, you know? But this time, he really outdid himself. So Noah and his girlfriend planned to attend a big festival together. She spent ages getting ready, hair done, fancy outfit, the whole 9 yards. She's super excited because they'd been talking about this event for weeks. Noah was in charge of buying the tickets, and you'd think he'd manage that, right? Well, apparently not. When they get to the entrance, she's all giddy, ready to show her ticket. That's when Noah casually drops a bomb. He only bought one ticket. She's standing there, totally confused, like, wait, I thought you got tickets for both of us. Noah just shrugs, mumbles something about how it was too expensive, and goes, well, sorry, guess you can't come in. Can you imagine the look on her face? Instead of running back to the box office to grab another ticket, or at least staying outside with her, like any decent partner would, he just waves goodbye, goes inside, and leaves her behind. The poor girl is standing there, tears welling up, absolutely humiliated. She ended up heading home in tears, completely alone. So here's the next story. There's this girl in my class, let's call her Daisy, who's basically the queen of backstage scheming when it comes to getting on the school sports team. Most students just show up for tryouts, right? Not Daisy. She prefers private chats in the teachers' offices, where she'll sweet talk her way into a jersey. Now, the funny thing is, Daisy isn't even that athletic. She's decent, but not superstar material. Yet somehow, she always ends up taking the last coveted spot on every team she aims for. Soccer, basketball, even track. And she hates running. Rumor has it that during these one-on-one sessions, Daisy tells teachers all sorts of gossip about other players, claiming they're too lazy, always late, or not committed enough. Meanwhile, she'll plaster on a sweet smile and say, but I'm totally dedicated. The best part? Teachers sometimes buy it. I guess they assume she's just being helpful by pointing out team concerns. Then you see the rest of us side-eyeing her in the hallway like, sure, Daisy. If one of her teammates so much as sneezes near the coach, Daisy's in the background whispering, I heard she's always sick. Maybe you should bench her. Oh, by the way, I'm available to start if you need me. Still, nobody ever calls her out directly because, well, it's kind of entertaining in a so obvious it's ridiculous way. She'll prance into practice like she's the MVP, even though everyone knows she wiggled her way onto the roster with a few carefully placed rumors. You can't help but roll your eyes and laugh, like at least she's consistent in her cunning, right? So today we are going to do another part of exposing your classmates. I have included some stories from the comments of last video as well, so if you have a story, comment below or join the Discord to share. There is also a traumatic story of me and my weird teacher that I will share with you guys, so watch the whole video. So here's the next story. I've got this friend, we'll call him Tom, who sits right next to me in class. At first, he seemed pretty normal, until he randomly started belting out these Chinese songs in the middle of lessons. I mean, picture this. The teacher's writing equations on the board, and out of nowhere, Tom's like, la la la, in Chinese lyrics none of us understand. Anyway, the teachers aren't exactly loving the mini concerts. They've tried everything, scolding him, sending him into the hallway, making him run errands to keep him quiet. But Tom just keeps singing. One time, my math teacher had him stay after class to write lines like, I will not sing during algebra, about 100 times. Now, I'm not proud of this, but I've literally been begging my teacher to switch Tom's seat with someone, anyone, just so I can have a moment of peace. It's gotten that bad. But here's the thing. I noticed something super weird the other day. Tom was flipping through a music competition flyer in Chinese. Turns out, he might actually be practicing for a huge singing contest. I overheard him telling someone he wants to be the next big star overseas. So here's the next story. Back in 4th grade, there was this one boy, let's call him Egghead. Trust me, the nickname makes total sense once you get to know him. Anyway, me and my bestie were chilling at lunch, just talking about who knows what, when Egghead randomly shows up and bam, spills milk all over my bestie, like completely drenches her hair and shirt in milk. She was furious, and I'm standing there trying not to burst out laughing. We march straight to the principal's office, and the principal basically goes, dude, you're suspended. And Egghead starts bawling on the spot. Picture that, a kid who was all tough a second ago, now crying rivers of tears. Meanwhile, my bestie's trying to wring milk out of her hair while glaring daggers at him. Talk about an awkward moment. Fast forward to PE class. Egghead decides to show off and impress the girls by doing these weird stretches and randomly shouting, look at me. The rest of us were trying not to gag because it looked like some bizarre attempt at breakdancing gone wrong. But here's the hilarious twist. Some of the girls actually liked him. Our class went ice skating 1 week later. We're all gliding around, having a good time, when suddenly we hear a shriek. Turns out Egghead somehow whacked another skater in the head. She was literally bleeding. I have no clue if he had some sharp skate trick up his sleeve or if it was just Egghead being Egghead, but he managed to cause total chaos on the ice. So here's the next story from our 5th grade chaos. Buckle up, because this one's wild. I'm talking wannabe gangsters, mean girls, and more cringe than I can handle. First off, let's talk about Mark. Picture the most over-the-top, I'm famous wannabe you've ever met. He struts into class like he's on camera 24/7, waving an imaginary phone he's not even allowed to have, and saying things like, hello guys, today I'm at school, skibidi style, while the rest of us just roll our eyes. He literally claims he has more subscribers than Mr. Beast. Sure, Mark. Now, Mark had this crush on our classmate Elena. One day, he decided to make a big confession video, fake phone in hand, calling it a love vlog. Let's just say Elena was not impressed. She shut him down on the spot with a death stare so intense, I swear I felt it from 3 desks away. Poor Mark. More like cringe Mark. He basically slid under his chair afterward. Meanwhile, my friend Emma got curious about his social media fame and asked for his exact subscriber count. He puffed up his chest and was like, oh, way more than Mr. Beast, obviously. The look Emma gave him was priceless, like a big brother. You, are you serious? Stare. She's popular, so half the class overheard, and now nobody believes a word he says about anything. But wait, it gets worse. During one of his I'm so cool moments, he did this crazy dance in the bathroom, spinning, yelling, doing weird Fortnite moves. Our poor classmate Asher was in there at the wrong time and got so freaked out, he apparently pooped his pants. Yeah, that's one bathroom break he'll never forget. Suddenly, Mark disappeared from school and turned into a homeschool kid. We thought that was the end of the story, but rumor has it, brace yourselves, he's now dating his stepsister. Yes, you read that right, dating his stepsister. I don't even know how to process that, but let's just say the gossip in our grade skyrocketed after that drop. Here's the next story. So 2 new boys joined our class. Let's call them Felix and Leo. One afternoon at break time, I stroll outside to get some fresh air. That's when I see it. Felix and Leo are not just talking or playing tag, they're straight up kissing by the jungle gym. I do a double take like, am I really seeing this right now? In 3rd grade, naturally, I sprint to find a teacher because A, I'm in shock, and B, that's definitely not on our standard recess activity list. The teacher goes full on serious mode, drags them into the office, and I'm over here trying to act cool, but on the inside, I'm like, what in the actual world did I just witness? Of course, Felix and Leo find out I'm the one who ratted them out, and oh boy, they're mad. Like next level, cartoon steam out of the ears furious. My friend, let's call her Ruby, sees me stressing over how these two newly minted troublemakers are about to launch a personal vendetta. She's like, don't worry, I've got your back, and proceeds to expose them big time. Apparently, they've been harboring some truly weird secrets, like casually snacking on erasers and Play-Doh when nobody's watching. Yes, you heard that right, erasers and Play-Doh. I wish I were making this up. By then, the whole situation was so bizarre I couldn't even be scared anymore. Who can be terrified of guys who literally munch on school supplies? It's like, how do you come back from that? Everyone found out, and let's just say their tough reputation crumbled faster than a stale cookie. So here's the next story. There's this girl, let's call her Jess. From the very start of the school year, Jess and I never clicked. We weren't exactly enemies, but we definitely weren't friends either. My best friend Ava, on the other hand, seemed to get along with Jess just fine. Because I didn't want to cause drama or force Ava to choose sides, I tried to play nice around Jess, at least on the surface. One sunny afternoon, the three of us, me, Ava, and Jess, decided to hang out on the soccer field after class. We'd just finished an exhausting math test, so the plan was to relax. I brought along some small toys and, for fun, a little makeup kit. Ava and I sat down on the grass, chatting away about how the test went. Jess joined us, and at first, it felt chill. Then Jess spotted my makeup bag. She immediately started asking if she could use it. The first time, I tried to be polite and just said, "Oh, I'd rather not share it right now." But she kept asking, again and again. I must have said no, sorry, a dozen times, and each time she got a little more pushy. I was trying really hard not to snap because I've got this reputation for having a short fuse, and I didn't want Ava to get caught in the middle. Finally, Jess did something I definitely wasn't prepared for. She snatched my makeup bag right out of my hands and took off running toward the swings. My heart started pounding, partly from anger, partly from sheer disbelief that she'd actually run off with my stuff. I jumped up to chase her, but she was already halfway across the field, swinging the bag like it was some prize she just won. I know I should have tried to stay calm, but my anger flared up. Before I knew it, I sprinted after her. By the time I caught up, Jess paused for a second to yell something, maybe bragging or teasing me, I'm not sure, and I took my chance. I tackled her, a move straight out of a football game. She hit the ground with a surprised yelp, and I, fueled by all my pent-up frustration, ended up punching her in the back a few times. Ava saw the whole thing, and I could hear them shouting in shock. It only lasted a couple of seconds, but it felt like an eternity. My anger was so strong, it took me a moment to realize what I was actually doing. Once it hit me, I backed off, my heart racing and my hands shaking. I grabbed my makeup bag, which was scattered on the grass, and tried to compose myself. Jess scrambled away, furious and a little freaked out. Ava stood there, torn between checking on Jess and making sure I was okay. Let's just say it was the most awkward end to what was supposed to be a chill afternoon. So, here's the next story by a girl. When I first joined this new school, I ended up sitting behind a boy named Chance. The second I walked into class, he fixed his gaze on me like I was some kind of rare alien specimen. I tried acting normal, but inside, I was losing it. I kept glancing over to see if he'd look away, but he never did. Naturally, I started suspecting that maybe he had a crush on me. I even started jotting down little notes about him in my diary. My imagination was going full speed, picturing secret admirers and everything. Well, the reality was less romantic. A few days later, I overheard Chance laughing about how he loves to pick on people, especially the new kid. It felt like a bucket of ice water. So he wasn't gazing at me longingly. He was sizing me up for his next prank. That changed everything. Now, whenever the teacher said recess time, I knew I'd be sprinting around the playground trying to avoid him. Sometimes I'd duck behind the slide or pretend to be super focused on the monkey bars, anything to keep my distance. Other times I'd run laps around the field just so he couldn't corner me. I'm not sure how long my attempts to avoid him would have lasted, maybe until summer break, but for now, I was basically the school's fastest kid on the field. So much for daydreams about secret crushes. So on to the next story. I was in first grade, and there was this kid on my bus that I'll just call Weird Kid. Let's just say we were not destined to be friends. He sat in the seat next to mine, which wouldn't have been a big deal if he didn't try the most random stuff, like taking off his shoes while the bus was moving. One time, the bus driver actually sprinted down the aisle to stop him. I'm still not sure what he was planning to do once those shoes came off, but it definitely freaked everyone out. Then there was the day I decided, for reasons I still can't fully explain, to bring my Huggy Wuggy plush on the bus. Weird kid noticed it immediately and acted like it was the greatest treasure in the world. He snatched it up, insisting he was going to take it to his comm room. I'm pretty sure that comm room was just a big covered closet at the back of the bus, but that didn't stop him. He marched over there, and I could hear weird thumps and muffled giggling. A few minutes later, he tossed my plush back to me, and it was absolutely soaked in slobber. I'm talking dripping wet, shiny, and gross. The sight made me burst into tears right on the bus. The other kids were either staring or trying not to gag. When we finally got to school, I basically ran off the bus, clutching my poor soggy huggy wuggy, wondering how on earth I ended up sitting next to the strangest kid in first grade. Here's the next story. There were these two classmates, let's call them Natalie and Jade, who were basically friendly rivals in everything. They'd compete over who got the best test score, who had cooler sneakers, even who had the neatest handwriting. But one day, they took things to another level. They set their eyes on the same guy, the classic cool boy in school, Tyler. Natalie and Jade made a bet with each other. They'd both try to make Tyler fall in love, and the first one who got him to ask them out would win. Jade went all out, strategically scheduling moments to bump into Tyler at his locker or offering him homemade cookies. Meanwhile, Natalie was dropping subtle compliments and leaving post-it notes on his desk with flirty little messages. At first, Tyler seemed to enjoy the attention. Who wouldn't, with two classmates going out of their way to impress him? But then he started playing along a little too much, flirting back with both Natalie and Jade, egging them on, smiling extra wide whenever he passed them in the hallway. Teachers were raising eyebrows, but no one acted on it. Until one afternoon, it all blew up in a big messy scene. During a pep rally, Tyler ended up in the middle of the bleachers with both Natalie and Jade. Nobody's exactly sure who started it or how it escalated, but they were arguing loudly, something about "he's mine" and "no, he's gonna choose me." The next thing anyone knew, all three of them were escorted out of the gym by teachers. Turns out, when the principal looked into things, he discovered some pretty inappropriate behavior, secret notes with not so school appropriate language, the occasional borderline stalking incidents, and even manipulation to skip classes so they could win the bet. It all added up to a massive violation of school rules. In the end, Natalie, Jade, and Tyler were kicked out. So here's the next story. There was this guy, let's call him Derek, who loved playing the cool dude. He'd roll into class wearing flashy sneakers, acting like he owned the place, and his girlfriend Hannah was just as over the top. She'd complain about every little thing, expecting everyone to cater to her. Together, they made quite the pair. One day at lunch, Derek and Hannah got into a spat with a quiet guy named Oliver, who always sat by himself reading comics. Hannah bumped into Oliver's tray, spilling food everywhere, and instead of apologizing, she started ranting about how Oliver needed to watch where he was going. Derek saw his chance to play the hero, so he stepped in, glaring at Oliver like he was about to throw down. Out of nowhere, Derek pulled off his shirt, as if that would instantly prove how tough he was. The cafeteria went silent. You could practically see the question marks floating above everyone's heads, like, why is he half naked in the middle of lunch? Hannah smirked like she had a front row seat at a boxing match. Oliver, meanwhile, just stood there, wide-eyed behind his glasses, looking more confused than scared. Derek lunged forward, chest puffed out, ready to defend Hannah's honor. What nobody realized is that Oliver, the quiet kid with a stack of comics, actually happened to be practicing martial arts after school for years. Seconds later, Derek's big show backfired. He charged at Oliver, swung wildly, and Oliver stepped aside so effortlessly it looked like some movie stunt. One quick move, and Derek ended up stumbling into a nearby table, trays crashing, food flying. The whole cafeteria burst into laughter. Derek scrabbled to his feet, furious, but before he could try again, Oliver calmly told him to back off. Realizing he was completely out of his league, Derek muttered something about "this isn't over," grabbed his crumpled shirt, and stormed off with Hannah trailing behind him, yelling at him for embarrassing her. Rumor has it he stayed home sick for a couple of days after that showdown. As for Oliver, he just went right back to reading his comics, looking as unbothered as ever, though now everyone knew better than to mess with the so-called nerd. Back in 7th grade, I had this teacher, let's call him Mr. Martin, who was supposed to teach math, but somehow it felt more like he was running a game show where the prize was public humiliation. Any random day of the month, he'd single out me and a couple of other boys. We'd be sitting there, minding our own business, hoping to fly under the radar, when suddenly he'd call out, "You, get up here!" He'd fire off the most impossible question you could imagine. Something like, what's 13,714 times 967 in your head? We'd stand there, awkwardly trying to think of how to even start. The rest of the class would go dead silent, praying they weren't next in line. Next thing I knew, Mr. Martin would start smacking our hands. or even use that old wooden ruler on the back of our leg. And just when we'd be on the verge of tears, some of us actually breaking down, he'd laugh and say, "Lighten up, it's just a prank." He did this so many times that every day I walked into class, my stomach would tighten. Would he decide today was prank day? Or would he just teach like a normal person? There was no way to predict it. One time it happened on a random Wednesday after lunch. The worst part was how quickly he'd switch modes. One minute he was the stern teacher, glaring at us like we'd insulted his ancestors. The next minute he'd be patting our shoulders, chuckling, "Come on, you guys need a sense of humor." But it was tough to find anything funny when your hand was still stinging and your pride was on the floor. I remember hating his class with a passion. Just the mention of Mr. Martin's name made my heart race. I dreaded seeing him stroll in, casual as ever, because there was a chance he'd pick one of his special victims for another prank. It took a while for me to figure out that none of this was normal. Teachers aren't supposed to make you terrified of class. Looking back, I still can't believe he got away with it for so long. Part of me wonders if the school administration ever found out how bad it got or if they were just clueless.